Okay, welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to another Addy Chat. It's the 27th of January, Wednesday, just after 1600 on the East Coast. And I am pleased to be joined once again by former detective of Scotland Yard, and activist, YouTuber, and online social media presence as well, Mr. Jon Wedger. Jon, thank you so much for chatting again.
It's all right. How are you, Ads?
I'm good, Jon. Yeah, and I'm looking forward to catching up with you. We spoke yesterday for a bit, but a lot has happened since we spoke last, especially in your country. Both of our countries, really, just a lot has transpired, and a lot of infighting going on I think both sides of the pond within the spheres that we work in. But yeah, how have you been? What have you been working on recently, Jon? What have you been up to recently?
Well, I've sort of taken a more of a low key social media profile. Last year was a busy year. I mean, I had 2 million views on my videos on YouTube. I don't know how many on Facebook, and that was actually one of the quiet years for me. 2019 was probably the busiest year when I was running a million Facebook views a month. But it's an emotive subject, child abuse, and especially when you then start going into the satanic ritual abuse, it becomes very dark. And unfortunately, there's a lot of traumatized and damaged people that want help, and they come your way. But I had a team that was forever growing, but then infighting occurred, and it just got endemic, and it spread like a cancer, and it just all fell apart. I mean, I was warned from the very start by a criminal profiler who just said, always work on your own, especially when it comes to child abuse, because you're just going to suffer exactly what I suffered, So it was all predictive. And this is someone who knows how it works. And you get that a lot with the survivor groups. They all fight amongst each other. They can't get on. And, it's just one of them things. It's one of them things. It can be explained, psychology and all that. I mean, I'm not a psychologist. I'm not a counsellor. I'm no longer a detective. All I am is a former whistleblower who's going out there and podcasting. But some people had higher expectations of me, and I think there was a bit of idolatry coming to it. And then you get organised trolling as well. And these are just people that just love to hate. They just love to hate. Haters love to hate, and hurt people hurt people. And
for those that don't know, Jon Wedger, his principal work now that he's retired has been child abuse, and specifically child sexual abuse. And we actually covered that in previous interviews where Jon talks about his beat work in investigating the prostitution in London, and how sex offenders would hide by skipping boroughs and living on the water canal there along the Thames. And I just wanted to ask you, because I had reached out to Wilfred Wong, who is a researcher and a guy who knows a lot about this particular topic. Is it true that he got arrested, Wilfred Wong?
Yeah. Let's sort of go in a bit of background of Wilfred. Wilfred is a former barrister, lobbyist. He's a Singapore national. He was in the military in Singapore. He's a tough guy, Wilfred. Intelligent guy. He's a man of God, and he's someone who really cares dearly about children and protecting children. And he is probably globally one of the most premier campaigners for exposing what's classed as SRA, satanic ritual abuse. I've worked closely with Wilfred for a number of years. I'm aware of his MO, his modus operandi. I'm aware of his tenacious sort of attitude when it comes to a non-negotiable attitude when it comes to investigating satanic ritual abuse. It's a very dangerous subject. You're dealing with not just perversion, sexual perversion, which involves children on most occasions. You're also dealing with a spiritual battle, which a lot of people, we're living in a bit of a godless world now. A lot of people don't tend to grasp it, but it does go on. It's like someone said to me, I don't believe in God. I said, well, it doesn't matter, but God believes in you. And if you believe in God, then, the converse is true. There is the flip side of it, which is Satanism. and Satanism is all about blood rituals. Wilfred is currently remanded in custody in a quite a notorious prison in the northwest of England. He was arrested on the 4th of November. The national newspapers put it out that he was a knife wielding child abducting kidnapper. It isn't the case. Can't go on too much. It's an ongoing case. In my opinion, it's a rescue attempt that has gone wrong. In my opinion, there's a child there that was in need of help, and Wilfred came and helped, and it's gone wrong. Again, we've got very, very strong, not just libel laws in this country, but we got things known as contempt of court. So if you discuss something which hasn't gone before a criminal court and it's an ongoing proceedings, the court owns the jurisdiction. So it's like you're actually in a courtroom. So the judge can say, right, you're not talking about this. If you do, you too will go to prison. So there's already been 3 people arrested for podcasting about Wilfred. Wilfred was arrested with 5 co-defendants, one of which died tragically in prison. Was found, already was found suffocated in his cell within a week of being locked up. I've spoken to Wilfred. There was concerns, there was rumours that Wilfred had been attacked with a knife and hospitalised. It's not true. Wilfred is a mixed martial artist, and he can physically handle himself, but also he's come to use for other prisoners in there. He's helping them out with legal issues. You know, a lot of people are aware of Wilfred's work. The prison officers allegedly one night sat down and watched one of Wilfred's interviews, and a few of the inmates have seen the interviews that he's done, not just with myself but other people. So he's got quite high standing now in prison. He's quite well thought of. He's just saying the thing that is killing him is the time. But he should have been eligible for parole. He keeps getting it refused. He doesn't know why. So we just have to wait and see. There is a campaign. I can actually. I don't know if I've got some correspondence here. 1 second. I'll try and find a letter. I have a letter from Wilfred. I might just write up his prison number if anyone wants to contact him. There is a, you know, he likes the letters, you see. So what I'll do is I'll quickly scribble on a bit of paper his prison number and his name, his number, and the prison address. And
what prison is he remanded at?
Yeah, it's HMP, Her Majesty's Prison, HMP Berwyn. Berwyn. And that's let me just see, just bear with me a minute, Eddie. I have got actually a letter from the prison that they wrote to me, just basically saying that Wilfred is okay. He's not in any problems. You know, he's because I was just doing my we'll have, if you could Google it, that's how it's spelled. It might come out backwards, Berwyn.
No, it's coming out right side.
And that is in a place called Wrexham. I spell that, and that's in the UK. If you Google it, you'll get it. But you've got to put his name and his prison number. People want to write to him. It always boosts the morale when you get a letter. Please Google Wilfred as well. Prison number. I'll just put this on, and you can. This there as a matter of record. Then here we go. Look, there we go.
Okay, so there's his number, A0599EP. And I will share that in the description box as well. Thank you, John. In case anybody wants to send a letter to him, you actually did, I think, several interviews with him last year, if I remember, in person on your Brew with a View show.
Yeah, I did quite a lot with Wilfred, and I've done sort of extended interviews with him in the past. I myself was going out and interviewing victims and survivors of child abuse, but then that specialised into satanic ritual abuse. I'd also done interviews with people from the health service, criminal profilers all around it. So I like to, when I pick a topic to deal with, a bit like when I would investigate, you've got to look at everything around it, the whole environment of it. And I've taken more of a low key approach because there was a concerted attempt to. You just have to bear with me because I am in my evening job, so I'll just have to keep 2 seconds. How are you? All right? Oh, you have to press it. All right, my friend. Right. So,
how have things been, John, with regards to just the general situation and the government and COVID and the lockdowns?
The UK's been. It's been a real paradox because I was going to anti-lockdown protests and speaking out. Of course, there's no doubt that there is a flu virus, which is causing people a lot of discomfort, and it's actually causing some deaths. But no different to the amount of people that die of flu in the UK anyway. We've had a drop of 98% of flu deaths. Yet the death rate for the UK has remained constant over the last 30 to 40 years. It hasn't altered. So there's been no spike in deaths. It's just that there is a flu and people are getting it. I mean, the UK is a wet, cold, damp country, which is synonymous with colds and flus anyway. They've locked people up and they've made us mask up. They brought in very draconian rules. They've stopped us from going to our public houses, our pubs, our bars. I mean, the UK have got some of the best pubs in the world. We're like the benchmark for pubs, and it's where the British people would go and sit down and drink and meet and discuss things. And it seems strange that the first thing Hitler did when he came to power was shut the coffee shops and the bars to stop people colluding, and they've done that in the UK. And they did it during the Great Plague of 1665 as well. They shut down all the bars. So we're seeing the same sort of legislation that was brought in, nearly 400 years ago. And they're the centerpiece of life, but economically they can't survive. These are places that have been open, maybe some of them 1,000 years. They've been, purpose built, and they're still in operation even to this day. Like these old sort of ancient coaching inns and ale houses, and they survived civil wars, great wars, and they've shut them, and they're not going to be able to open. So we've basically got no bars left in the UK. They just haven't survived. It's so difficult, and of course, coffee shops, restaurants, and if people go out, no one can go to toilet. So it's not a problem for men, but for women, there's nowhere for women to go to the toilet. And it's quite interesting when you draw a parallel between what would happen in India. A lot of women, they were poorly educated and illiterate because they couldn't go to school because they refused to build toilets for women. So women couldn't spend an inordinate amount of time away from home because their toilet was the field, and that made them vulnerable. But also, they have body functions that are totally different from men, especially once a month, and it actually prohibited women from getting an education. And we're sort of seeing a very similar thing in the UK now, where you can't go for long walks. You're not allowed 2 miles from your home. But if you want to go for a long walk, there's nowhere to go to the toilet. There's nowhere to go for refreshments. They've shut down our gymnasiums. It's just mad. It's absolute madness. But I'm surprised with the British people how they've just acquiesced to this. I mean, I've not acquiesced to it. I've not. I won't wear a mask. I tried one on once. It made me feel ill. It was appalling. It was absolutely suffocating. Hello, mate. All right. Yeah. Good, my friend.
How do you think the U.S. election has tied into events over in your country, John, if at all? And have you seen a difference since the election results or the 20th?
I think from what I've seen, there was a lot of people, especially in the sort of environment, in the political stance that I'm sort of in. People were hoping that Donald Trump was going to be this sort of savior. There was rumors going to release names of all politicians that were paedophiles, and it never happened. I
Yeah.
never personally held out any hope for it because he had all the time in the world to do it if that was going to happen, but it didn't. And then the QAnon movement, and it was all just wait, the last day in office, he's going to do it. He's going to, and just it came and it went, like any other day. And I think people should be very careful about putting all their eggs in one basket and having this idolatry that one person's going to save the world. I mean, he didn't do it. He did his term and he left, and it was just the same. I think Biden, especially the inference that this man is a sexual predator. That's the sort of vibe that we get over here. This man got a
same here.
Checkered sort of past, and the rumor control about this man is unbelievable. So, I mean, politically over here, it's just a waste of time. It is a waste of time. I think the British people have realised that, we've got the left wing and the right wing, or we call them the red and the blue, but they're just two wings of the same bird. They're two cheeks of the same arse. They're they make no difference whether the red gets in or the blue gets in, the left gets in or the right. None of them seem to make any difference. Now, it doesn't seem to be a choice. I think there's really a lot of no confidence in Boris Johnson because he hasn't seemed to stand up for us. He hasn't stood up for our businesses, and we're going to face a monumental financial backlash through this lockdown. That statistically, there's hardly anyone under the age of 40 that's died of it. So those that are fit enough to go and work should be allowed to go and work. People are being locked up and not allowed out. They're getting lazy. They're putting on weight. Depression is going up. Suicide rates are going up. So whatever extra deaths they are because of COVID, which at the moment statistically, and we've got to look at the stats, they don't add up. It doesn't warrant a lockdown because more people are dying this year than they did last year or the year before. In fact, there's less people dying. Right.
Yeah. I'm obviously a little biased because I'm American, but it has been my contention that the Trump coup or the presidential election of this year has really been kind of the pivot point for a lot of these worldwide lockdowns. But what are your thoughts on that? Do you think that since Biden has now secured power, as far as we can tell, are we going to see an easing of that worldwide or in certain countries, do you think?
Well, again, it says in the Bible, by their fruit shall you know them. They can say all they want, and they promise so much before they get into power. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. They always appeal to the working man. They always try and build safety, saying we're going to put more police on the streets. We're going to do this. And none of them ever do. We just financially get worse and worse and worse. So until you actually see positive actions, I would put no faith in their words. Their words are cheap. Their talk is meaningless, but it's actions that count, So what they're going to do, what actually is he going to do? Well, if you're going to do it, then crack on and do it. And if it's positive and it brings jobs, it brings prosperity, it brings hope, education gets better, family system gets better, where single parenting drops, crime drops, and something good's coming. But if it doesn't happen, and house prices need to drop as well. It needs to be affordable housing that people can pay off. Mortgage rates need to be low. All these simple things.
Mm-hmm.
But if they're not going to do it, then what's the point? It's the same as anyone else. And it's but in the UK, people are giving up. They are really giving up, and it's changing people's psyche as well. So before, you would stop and talk to someone, you would shake their hand, someone would give you a hug. Now people jump out the way from you. They stand back, and if someone we go and shop and they put money in your hand, they drop it from a great height. There's no physical interaction, and they see you not as a person but as a mound of rotting bacteria that's going to kill them. And you see the horror in people's faces. It's unbelievable. I mean, I was walking the dog the other day and there was a couple and they held their breath as I walked past them. So I stopped. They couldn't walk past me. They stopped and they were going blue in the face, they were going to pass out. And I just thought, my God, what an insult, it's just, it's insulting. It's just ridiculous. And And it shows the reluctance of people to get involved and to make a change. But something needs to happen because businesses, right, are now going to reevaluate what they need and what they don't need. Do they need office space anymore? Because people have worked from home, right? And there's so many jobs now that are going to be supernumerary that say, well, we survived without you during lockdown. Well, we don't need you now. They they refused us 2 years ago in the UK. We get the least amount of bank holidays. We call them bank holidays, days off, national days off, than any other country in Europe. We work longer hours in the UK than any other country in Europe. I think Portugal has 3 times the bank holidays we do, and they retire at 50, whereas we retire the latest. We're now into our 70s before we retire in the UK. It's just mad. They work you to death. So they requested one extra bank holiday for the British people, and it was refused on the grounds that financially we couldn't afford it. They've imprisoned us for 1 year. Our children have not had an education for a year, and it's the same as trains and buses. Well, you're seeing buses in London that they're running with no one in them. They're empty. And there's bus after bus. They're running a normal schedule of empty buses. Same as trains, empty. Now, it's not long before they're going to start cutting back on that. And once things go, they never come back. You know. So
I have a question here, John, before I pivot again. What are your thoughts on Nigel Farage?
Again, I mean, he appeals to a certain genre. He's a former banker. I think he was a merchant banker or something to do with the financial sector. He's obviously a wealthy man. He appeals to people in the UK in respect to immigration. We're getting a lot of immigrants smuggling themselves into the UK now on boats from France, which is
I've noticed.
It seems a very en vogue thing. I mean, why weren't they doing it years ago? Why now are they all? It doesn't make sense that you'll go through periods and nothing happening, and all of a sudden, bang, it all happens. So there's a lot of people there that are getting angry. The British government doesn't help by putting people up in hotels at the cost of the British public. But there's a lot of xenophobia instilled into people. Now, I remember in my days as a detective in London, and bear in mind, London is one of the most diverse cities in the world. And the UK was the centre of the biggest empire that there's ever been. The Romans were.
People stay, it still stands.
Yeah, so sometimes, the birds come home to roost. So we've got the Commonwealth, a lot of countries in West Africa, the Caribbean islands, all over the place. India, and then you get a lot of communities set up in the UK. Now, what happened in the early 2000s was that Europe was breaking down its borders from the old communist regime and allowing free movement. And I can remember a country called Lithuania. It's a very small Baltic state that borders Russia. And there was all this publicity coming out in the national press that Lithuanians were a very hard ex-Soviet bloc country. Their main export is guns and prostitution. They're the experts at forgery. So if we go into the euro, they're going to defraud us of all the euros. They're going to be making money and running prostitutes and bringing guns in. And these are bad. This is the beast from the east, they called them. Right. And there was all this panic about these Lithuanians that these were like the Stasi. These were like paramilitary, these guys, and they were hard, tough, and they were going to just wipe us all out like the grey squirrel. They were going to destroy all us little British red squirrels, And they came over here, and do you know what? All they did was work hard. They integrated. Most of them were fluent in English before they came here. And that was it. And they brought back a lot of family values. The next race was the Romanians, which has got like a recognised ethnic sort of group of gypsies, proper gypsies, trace themselves back from Indian blood gypsies, And they said these Romanians, They make their money through prostitution and stealing children. And there was all this panic that Romanians were going out and stealing British children. You know, the Romanians came here, and do you know what they did? They worked hard. They worked hard. They learned English, they integrated, and they worked hard. You know, and they've done nothing. So you can easily wind people up, you know, and it doesn't take much to wind up the right wing and say these people are going to ruin what you've got. We need them out, you know. And you know, people going about the white Anglo-Saxon. You know, we are the most mixed race on this planet. You know, the British people. There's been an attack on the British people because we're a tough race. You know, we could go to the Arctic and survive. We could go to the jungles of South America to survive, and we would survive. There's not many animals you could put all around in different climate zones, and they'd survive. Where the British were good, but we've been eroded over time. We you know, we've taken away our values. They've taken away our dignity, our self-respect, and they've turned us into lazy morons, really. And the migration has given us a boost because, you know, a lot of them have come from good family structured units, and they bring them attitudes back here. And you know, I'm all for them, but Farage, he's got a point. You can't just, you know, allow people, and there's got to be regulation, and there's got to be borders. But at the same time, you know, the British had one of the best border security in the world. They got rid of it. They just got rid of it. So don't go blaming what's happening now. When it was happening, people should have kicked off them, but they didn't, you know. And we had some of the best policing in the world. We were a benchmark. As a detective, I've taught, you know, detectives from all around the world, you know, from Saudi Arabia to Jamaica, Trinidad. They've all come over to our training college, and you know, I was teaching interview skills, and we were seen as the best in the world. But now we're just seen as a joke, a laughing stock, you know. And they've slowly eroded. But it's our government's done it. I don't think it's immigration that's done it. I think it's our own governments that's done it, you know.
You mean you think they are purposely trying to incite infighting within your citizenry?
No, I think what they're purposely doing is turning the British people into morons. You know, they're watering down our family values. They're breaking us up. There seems to be an emphasis on single parenting and not keeping a family together. You know, we've got women that can't cook, men that don't know how to cut the grass. You know, we've just turned into morons, and we have. Horrible. I'm not knocking the British. I love the British people, you know, and I'm one of them. Sorry, I've got to keep you're still there, man.
Yeah, I'm here, John. No worries on that. I wanted to ask you though, John, about Anthony Bourdain and Isaac Cappy and their deaths. I don't know if you have thoughts on them, if you know who those two guys are.
Yeah, I mean, I've not really looked too much into Isaac Cappy. I've been sent a video of him. I mean, Anthony Bourdain, I mean, I'm aware of him because of his celebrity status, you know, being a chef, and I've seen some of his programs. But it's very interesting that, you know, he knew what was going on. He was aware of paedophilia, and so was Isaac Cappy in speaking out. And the next thing, hello, mate. And the next thing, you know, they both had suspicious deaths. I mean, it doesn't take a genius to work out what's going on. I mean, we've had it in the UK. We've had people speaking out. I mean, I was one of them. It's slightly different over here because what they'll do is they'll discredit you, and they'll just make you destroy yourself, really. Ultimately, you know, if you are a problem, I'm no doubt that the intelligence services will kill you. And I don't think there's many people that believe the official narrative of Lady Diana's death, you know. So, you know, we see it over here quite a lot when people are speaking out, how they are attacked, they're imprisoned. The man was a whistleblower. Well, both of them were whistleblowers. They should have been protected. They should have been taken seriously. And what they had to say should have been investigated. And it just goes to show there's a cover-up, you know. And
okay, and this next question I'm going to ask is simply as it's not because I usually don't ask these types of questions, but just I think for the audience benefit, you're obviously on good terms with Sean. You were just on his channel, And I also want to tie that into a question about, because you were taking a break from social media for a few months there, correct,
Yeah.
John?
Yeah.
Okay. And you're coming out now, and there's quite a bit of infighting going on, or at least there was towards the end of last year, second half of last year, within the English kind of media sphere that I could tell. And some of my sources told me the same. But I just wanted to get your comments on that, because I know there's a few people in the audience that would really like to hear me ask that and hear what you have to say.
Yeah, I mean, I've suffered from it as well. Yeah, you're gonna get damaged people, okay, and they want their voice, and rightly so. But they get their voice, and some people then their ego runs amok. They become jealous. So there will be people that are jealous of Sean's profile. They'll be jealous that he's getting an income. I mean, I was reported to the Serious Fraud Office last year, to the Inland Revenue for tax evasion last year, to the police. I had people taking injunctions out on me that I've never even spoken to. You know, if I raise money, people getting onto the funding sites and getting them stopped, saying I'm stealing the money. So whatever you do, you get attacked and attacked and attacked, because hurt people hurt people. You're dealing with a lot of dangerous people with a past, and some of them it's their ego, some of them it's pure hatred. You can absolutely see hatred in their eyes, you know, and they're going to get it. And Sean's had a rough ride, and you know, I bet if you get any sort of actor, you know, famous actor, I mean, they won't answer their own mail. They'll have an agent doing it, and they'll have an office that will go around and trawl through things. But they must be getting bags and bags of hate mail, which they never get told about, you know. So but when you do it on your own, you're the adjudicator. You're the one who filters the things through. They come through to you, and if I do a video, it comes up, Jon Wedger's this, Jon Wedger's that, and it's the same people. It's a handful of people. But I didn't really take much notice in some of Sean's interviews. Some I do. I'll talk to ex-criminals, providing they're helping. They put it behind them, and they're doing good with what's gone on in their lives. So they're using their experience to help others steer away from it. I've got no interest in talking to anyone who glamorizes crime, none whatsoever. Sean may have a different approach. I'll never rubbish Sean or denigrate him, but he may, you know, and it might be that in doing so, that's dangerous, you know, and some of these people may well be active criminals, and they might be people that are mentally unstable. And if you upset them, then they do what they know best, and that's just to hurt. So,
yeah.
And you can,
I want to say this too, John. I agree. I think a lot of it is based in envy of him, and I do want to make that clear too. You know, despite the fact that, you know, he may have made a mistake, he is, you know, I think he's kind of peerless in England as far as the podcasting sphere goes, and his interviews are great. I think his question asking is a really great model for people who want to be great interviewers. So. And you know, he's doing great work, and you know, everybody has their own type of work ethic. So, yeah, I just wanted to ask about that, because I know people want me to
inquire. Has really taken off now. You know, I would do it a very amateur how I did it, but you know, again, I've become incredibly successful at what I was doing. It was just really going well, but it was just me, my mobile phone, and some very, very cheap equipment. And I just
I noticed that, John. You definitely took off. I think last year, particularly on YouTube. I know you mentioned your numbers weren't in aggregate as big as they usually are, but I noticed all of the Englanders' YouTube subscribers really shot up, yours included. Because you only had a couple thousand, I think, to start off the year. Now you're getting up there. So that's great.
Some have gone over the 2 million mark and all that, but it's become big business, right? So people are linking in with advertising agencies, and they're doing it good, and they're doing good jobs, because it's an alternative narrative, you know, to the mainstream media, and the mainstream media is letting people down. It's filtered, it's government sanctioned, and it's a load of bullshit, really, you know. but what happens is that people then think that they can do it, but not everyone can do it. It's a skill. Interviewing is a skill. Holding your audience is a skill, but being able to oratate in front of people is a skill. And then all of a sudden, I think they try it.
I lost you there for a sec, John. I think you might have turned your mic.
I'm back in with you now.
Yes, sir. I got you.
Right. Okay. It's just someone rang and I've just had to cut me out. So I think they're all jumping on board with the show, and they realise then that they're not getting the figures. You know, they're not getting the figures like Sean Atwood and some of the big main podcasters. Now, Sean's been doing it over a decade, you know, and, you know, he treats people well. He's got good interview skills. You know, there's a balance when you interview, and they call it, you know, the 20-80. So it's 20% the interviewer, 80% the interviewee, you know. And he's got that down to a T. And I just think it is. It's just there's a lot of hatred, and they see the potential to make money without really breaking into a sweat, you know. And then what happens then is you get trolled, right? And you get negative comments. Now, I was speaking out against child abuse and the cover-ups of child abuse, and I couldn't believe that people had a problem with that. I thought, how could anyone have a problem with that? But they did, right? And then when I started speaking out against satanic ritual abuse, my words, you know, the hatred that came my way, as Wilfred will testify for. But Wilfred said, if you're making an enemy of a Satanist, you're doing a good job. You know, they should hate you. They should be putting horrible things about you because you're over the target. You're getting the flack because you're over the target. But some people, it destroys them when there's, you know, something you learn to live with. And I pull up with it for just under 4 years, and then I had enough of it. I thought, enough now. I don't need this. And it was becoming very spiteful, and it was involving my family. So I put an end to it. Now, what I do now is I'm still investigating crimes against children, but I do it covertly now. I work on my own, but I link in with people and then I link out again. And I've got a film crew with me, and I'm doing all right. You know. The thing is, because I'm not high profile, people aren't donating into me, whereas before they would donate in, and that money would fund it and it would help people. You know, a lot of money was going to people that was in help, you know. But unfortunately, that won't happen anymore because, you know, idiots screwed it up for everyone. But that's what they do. But Sean will get through it, but he just needs to be careful. I think he needs to be careful because some of these people, I think they've got a screw loose upstairs, you know, and they could be a little bit dangerous, you know.
Yeah. And you organized, or you were planning on organizing a protest last year, and then authorities came in and talked to you, correct, about shutting that down, or they just requested that you didn't convene? Is that correct?
Yeah, the Metropolitan Police's Public Order Department rang me up on a Saturday morning. The protest was going to be the 9th of May, and then the lockdown started, and then they start bringing in the unlawful gatherings. 3 people or more was deemed unlawful, and we was having massive interest from all over it. We was really on way to probably having one of the biggest protests, you know, in recent years. So the Metropolitan Police rang me up. It was a sergeant, and he said, "Look, John, I'm Sergeant so and so. It's about your protest you're organising." He said, "We know who you are." He said, "There's a lot of lads in the office still remember you. You've got a lot of respect still, and we deem you as honourable." He said, "We've been monitoring your Facebook, social media for quite a while now." But he said, "Words of advice, John. Don't do the protest. Firstly, it will be illegal and you'll get nicked, right? You'll get nicked and you'll be arrested, you know." And he said, "You know, we don't want to do that. We don't want to arrest you. We want to work with you." Now, I can live with that. So I cancelled it. And, you know, and the whole team, we stood people down, and it just got, boom, it just melted away, which was a shame. You know, we was really on a roll. Things were getting big. You know, I was getting recognised in the street, and you know, lorries would stop and the driver would wave at me and shout "well done," and people would come up to me and hug me in the street, and yeah, it was crazy. But you know, the message did get out there. It's a shame. It really is a shame because we needed the politicians on board with us. We needed to take it to. We've got the House of Lords. We've got the, you know, the Lords and Ladies, which really are the final sort of arbiters on our legal system. So our politicians can pass a law, but to the House of Lords, because we've still got a feudal system really running in the country, you know, where the posh make the rules and the poor don't, you know. So as much as they say it's democratic, it's not. It's very, very ancient, the British system, and it's been a benchmark of so many. So we needed that, all these people on board, and one way of doing it was for a protest through the media. But you know, when unfortunately when the authorities speak to you, you know, they're giving you like a gypsy's warning, as we used to say. They're giving this to the gypsies, you know, take the warning, because next time, you know, it's not going to be so polite. And I always say something about the police. They're like wasps, right? Leave them alone. You agitate them, they will sting you. They won't just sting you once; they'll come back and keep stinging you. You know, leave them alone. The best place to keep the police is at arm's length. I've got no need to interact with them. I've never ever would I want to antagonise them. You might win one little battle with just a normal beat police officer, but you know that they've got riot teams, they've got detectives, they've got surveillance teams, you know, and people have no idea of what they're capable of. They think the police are just the uniformed officer that either walks about or drives about. No way. That's 1% of what it is, you know. And having worked in the police and in covert policing and on sensitive inquiries, I worked in buildings that people didn't even know there was anything to do with the police, you know. I would go in there like this. They were just in industrial estates, you know, and they were fully functioning, investigating depots. No one had any clue. The cars were registered to building companies or plumbing companies or all sorts of things, you know. So if anyone got the number plate, you know, so it's clever. It's clever, and I mean, and that's without really going into the realms of the intelligence services. So, you know, we've got our police, but on top of that, we've got military intelligence, and they will be monitoring what we've been doing, because they get involved when anyone upsets the political or the economic or like the health stability of the country. So there was every chance that what we was doing was going to affect the political stability, because there was a lot of politicians that were named as being paedophiles. There were a lot of politicians that were failing to act, you know, in the right way. They were acting in a way that was basically malfeasance in the public office. Yeah, the judiciary was getting looked at the way that they've allowed paedophiles lenient sentences. And then what happened with Epstein, you know, that his links with Prince Andrew, and that really, I mean, if anything, over in the States had any impact over here, it was the Epstein thing. And it's funny how everything came at once. The Epstein
Yeah.
shut down. The next thing, we're all locked down, all within a couple of months. I mean,
Yeah.
that potentially could have ruined the royal family. I'm not a royalist. I think they should be removed. I think they've got a horrific, perverted history. They've been responsible for a lot of atrocities. You know, they failed to prevent a lot of atrocities involving children and sexual abuse. And I've personally been told about members of the royal family that have been very active paedophiles. So I'm not a fan of them at all. I'm really not. I've served the crown, but you know, again, I wouldn't knowingly ever serve a paedophile or whatever, or a procurer or a protector of paedophiles. But I mean, Prince Andrew, he was in a world of trouble. He really was in a world of trouble, and it just went away. It was typical British. There's nothing to see, move on, old chap, you know. Let's have a cup of tea and a game of cricket, and let's forget all about it. And it went away, and it actually went away. I mean, had that carried on with the momentum it was, now that's where Trump could have really sort of made a name for himself if he'd have continued and pushed and got behind that. but it seemed everyone was dirted by Epstein. Even Trump had sort of involvement with his little island and his planes, and so did our former politician Tony Blair. And it just shows the extent of the perversion, and what these people get up to, and they will keep records of it. So everything, the moment anyone got on one of his planes, it would have been ledgered, logged, and recorded. And the moment they stepped out, and they were having sex parties, and they were having sex with children, and that's what was going on. They can say what they want, but that's what was going on.
Our Chief Justice was on his ledger as well, or his flight log, Mr. Roberts. Is it your understanding that Andrew is a MI6 operative, and that's why he was with Epstein?
But Andrew, don't know. I mean, he's a member of the royal family. I mean, he doesn't need to be an MI6 operative, does he? I mean, he doesn't need to do anything. He can sit on his arse all day. He'd still have a nice life, He might be, he might not. Who knows? I don't know. I mean, it makes me laugh. It's like when people say there's a secret file that's just come out. Well, if it's secret, how's it just come out on the internet? If it's secret, it's secret. No one knows about it, And, so these things don't just leak out. I mean, you did have Julian Assange was leaking information, and you look what they've done to him. I mean, they should have just killed him, really. That would have probably, done them more favors if they just shot him, run him over, or whatever that they do, But he's, stirred up more of a drama being locked away. But he was speaking out about what was going on, and bang, that was it. He's he'll probably never see light of day, and I think if anything, he's probably gone mad now what they've done to him. But that we was on a real tipping point, and especially with Epstein's death or alleged death or whatever it might be. Who knows what happened? But and maybe you'll never know. But it was just like another John F. Kennedy scenario, and that hot potato should never have been dropped. Should have kept.
You think we dropped it, John?
Yeah, I think it's gone. It's dropped. It's gone. I think the the time for it, the momentum's just gone. It was there, and it was moving. That was really good news, and that was big news. But now you pick up a newspaper now, all it is COVID. There is no news. There's not one mention of a volcano going off, a riot, a murder, nothing. Everything. One second. If you just bear with me a minute, Ed.
No worries.
Oh, yeah. Good.
So I am going to ask John next a little bit more about Mr. Epstein, and another royal question as well before we wrap up here, getting to the top of our hour. I had a question for you, John. Did you, when you were still in in the workforce, did you do projects with MI6, or did you work with them at all? Not knowingly. I went to meetings when I was dealing with paedophiles in these bizarre buildings that were just like these concrete shells, and I met with members of the intelligence service there. I've been to intelligence meetings with them, and they would supply information about certain paedophiles coming to note, and it's really big eye-opener, because I'd meet up with intelligence operatives from all different sectors of society. So there was myself and another officer for the police. We had the national crime thing, so it's a bit like the FBI, it's a national thing. So we had the national crime thing. We had people from Interpol. We had people from the Postal Service. They had paedophile information officers, Postal Service. The tourist industry had people. The customs at the airport security had people. We had people from the national health, from private industries, from the intelligence services, and we'd all share information about paedophiles. And every now and then, information would come through about, what certain politicians, that came to notice for certain things. And it was very, very interesting, But that was, I never did joint operations like that with them.
never, sometimes they would have an interest in certain things you were dealing with, but never really sort of had any need to. But I know that the unit I was on, a couple of officers that then got seconded to a unit called SIS, and it was, I don't know what that stands for, Secret Information Service or something, I don't know. And it was where the intelligence service and the police would work together, because they were civilians. They were civilians. They were military intelligence, but they were civilians. And whereas we weren't, we weren't civilians. We were warranted officers. But they were civilians. So MI were civilians, but a lot of them have come out of the military, and a lot of their operatives are military, and some of them are armed as well. But they started getting involved in drug importation cases and all sorts. So they opened their remit, when the terrorism died down, especially with the Irish terrorism. They a lot of them had nothing to do, so they started getting involved with criminal matters. It started getting farmed out. But again, they're a bit of an anomaly. I know a former MI6 officer who speaks to me quite a bit and tells me bits and pieces. But I spoke to a former intelligence guy the other day, and I might be doing a bit of work with him regarding tracking down paedophiles. But apart from that, I don't really. I have no interest really in it, to be honest.
You mentioned the royal family and that you're not a royalist. With Meghan and Harry moving to California, it adds a bit of credence to the question I'm going to ask, which is, do you think that the Queen is still holds ultimate sway over the West in a way that people don't understand anymore?
Yeah, I think the UK is the tail that sometimes wags the American dog. I think there is a lot of influence there, and I think it goes a lot deeper. I think the Vatican has got a say in a lot of what goes on. I mean, if you look at the Vatican, if they was to call to arms, a bit like an Islamic State calls to arms, when you've got various Islamic countries all banding together. Well, what if the Catholics were to do that? They'd have all of Central and South America. You take countries like El Salvador, they're 95% Catholic. They would have the Philippines. 90% of Europe is Catholic. 90% of Southern Ireland's Catholic. So if they were to call to arms, my word, the Catholics would be a formidable force. Like with the Islamics, their situation, a lot of Africa is Catholic. We're not talking Christian, we're talking Catholic, Roman Catholic. So I think that they hold a massive sway in what's said as well. And when the Queen meets with the Pope, a lot's going on there. And these are ancient people. These go back a long way. A hell of a long way. And the other thing with Harry is that they call him Harry Hewitt, not Harry Windsor, Harry Hewitt, because the rumours are that it's Major what's his name, something Hewitt, an ex-army officer, is his father. And if you look at this Major Hewitt, he looks just like Harry. He's got ginger hair. He's in the same regiment that Harry was in. It's a bit of a no-brainer that is Harry's dad. Looks totally different. He's got, he's loved. The English, the British love Harry. They think he's all right. William, not so much. Charles, I don't think anyone's got any respect for that man. They think he's weird, And I've heard some. Anyway, I can't go on about it. What I've heard, but yeah, I think the Queen's going to probably hold down as long as she can, really, because the alternative is that Charles takes the crown, and I think that would be a disaster, and I don't think they'd allow it either. I don't think it'd be allowed. But there's a lot of unanswered questions now, and people have moved away from that old discipline. Serve the Queen and country and stiff upper lip and all that. I think that's gone. I think a lot of people just can't be asked with the royals. But the Commonwealth is a big thing. It's an economic thing as well. And if you look at, when Britain had its empire, they had all these little outposts where they monitored who came in. You can't go into the Mediterranean unless you go past Gibraltar. You know, Gibraltar still it's like mini England. I don't know if you've ever been there. It's this
I
tiny.
haven't. I know it's in World War II. It was highly valued, and people thought there was going to be a battle there because of its strategic importance and location. And they even made like tunnels, which they had to fill in the years after the war. I think a few of them are still active, but they had to fill in a lot of the tunnels just because they were too dangerous.
I would say just visit Gibraltar, just for the novelty effect. It's more British than Britain. You've got the old British Bobby, in the Mediterranean sun. It's just 9 miles off the coast of North Africa, walking about, and it's all the British shops. Everything's in sterling, and not in the euro. British pubs, fish and chips. It's incredible. You think even things like the phone boxes and the post boxes and the curbstones are all British. They brought them all over there for it. It's a very, very odd place. And then you had Hong Kong. Again, you couldn't really go anywhere in the Far East unless you went past these outposts, Singapore, Hong Kong, and again, the little outposts in Africa, not the interior, because the interior was difficult to manage, but all the coastal things, they had them all. Um, so it was so strategic what they did. And the other thing people have got to ask themselves is that, the UK, we become so EU compliant and we took on so many EU laws. They're both basically dictating to us, but we never took on their currency, right? We never took on their currency. We never lost the sterling. Yet the City of London, which is its own country, a little principality in the middle of London, like the Vatican, a third of the world's economy goes through that place every single day. It is a financial hub of the world. So that's probably why they never. And if you look at the other banking places like Switzerland, they've not gone into the euro either. And these are big questions that I would always ask myself. Why have they not done that? You either go into it or you don't. You either take the laws or you don't. And so Britain coming out of the EU, well, I think it was always going to happen, you know. But they did their best to sort of stop it happening. But the majority of people wanted out, and so has it made any difference? Well, I don't know. We'll find out. I just think that none of us have got any control in what's going on at the moment. It's just monumentally crazy times, and
Yeah.
it's very sad, especially if you walk through London now. It's dead. It's a ghost town. It's just shut up. The bars, the pubs, coffee shop, all shut. All shut.
Well, we are pretty much at the end of our hour here, John. What's the next couple weeks, the next month going to look like for you work wise? What are you focusing on? What do you want people to check you out?
Yeah, I'm investigating satanic ritual abuse. I'll continue to do so. We're also looking at indigenous belief systems, mainly from the Caribbean and Africa, and how much they're influencing organised crime in London. So I've spoken to quite a few victims of voodoo, and they've been trafficked over for the sex industry. And it really is dark and dangerous, and very, very prevalent in the UK. So videos are coming out. I'm doing podcasts. Podcasts will go out onto my YouTube channel. Facebook is totally redundant. I don't use it anymore. I'll only pick up a message here and there. But apart from that, it'll be YouTube, or it'll be my website, the Jon Wedger Foundation, Jon Wedger Foundation, or Jon Wedger Foundation YouTube. But a lot of my stuff now is very, very covert. But periodically stuff will go out. But I'm working with a film crew, and hopefully we'll be having a series of documentaries coming out about child abuse and the cover-ups in the next year or so. So we're very much well into that, getting a lot of our footage now put together.
Excellent, John. Well, I'd love to chat again soon. And whenever people are allowed to leave their countries again and go visit England, I'd love to see you again too in person and do an interview that way as well. Whenever that happens, so I will put all your links in the description box as well, John.
Yeah. And but Pepsi Watson is now free, so Adam Watson is now out and trying to rebuild his life. So God bless him, and well done, Pepsi.
Okay, that was okay to release.
Yeah, he came out just before Christmas, and he's still got issues, really, because they're still restricting his freedom. But the main thing is he's out, and hopefully all the other matters, the probation matters, will be resolved.
Objects in the mirror, hopefully.
Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you, John. I will talk to you soon. Thanks everybody for listening, and stay frosty, folks. Till next time.